This week on Sky Notes, we talk about the equinox, the significance of the Cardinal Cross, and how the experience shifts or doesn't between the northern and southern hemispheres. Joining us is special guest Alicia Yusuf, an Australian astrologer, counselor, writer, and teacher. Known for her warm, empathetic style and practical insights, Alicia believes a self-chosen life is a life well lived. Her specialties include natal, counseling, and medical astrology, and you can learn more about her through the links in the description. And make sure to check out her socials. Let's get going. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sky Notes. We have Alicia Yusuf with us, and Lillian's here, and we are going to talk about the Cardinal Cross. So, the four cardinal signs that make a cross and their connection to the equinoxes. And so we brought Alicia to join us because she lives on the opposite side of the Earth, and so it's upside down. The seasons are
Is it you that's upside down? Is it us?
Yeah, that's
us,
fair.
I think.
That's fair. Well, according to a chart, it's us that are upside
Yes.
down, right? Because the south
Yeah.
sits at the top. So, it is. It's us that's upside down. But it was Nathan, I never remember his whole name. He's from South Africa, astrologer, who spoke to the hemisphere issue in astrology because it's so northern hemisphere bias, And so he's done a whole bunch of work on actually flipping the chart and working with it upside down from the southern hemisphere. So I'm looking forward to him putting out more information about that. It'll be interesting to see what he says. So Lillian, this was, you really wanted to talk about this, and we'll bring up, I have the equinox charts for both hemispheres that we can look at. And so Lillian, you kick this off. This is your baby.
I wanted to chime in because I think a lot about how Melanie Reinhardt presents the Cardinal Cross as the cross of incarnation. And I love that notion that we come to life at the angles. And so how we move through them becomes such a significant thing. And then in terms of the northern southern hemisphere piece, it may not be your area of expertise, but I wanted to start to tease apart our notions of this northern hemisphere as being the only filter that we have to look at the charts. And so the equinox stand out because this is our harvest and it is the beginning of spring for you. And so if you wanted to speak to that, and then everything that Tracy was saying as well. But do you think about the Cardinal Cross as the incarnation or the points where we come to life and are here on this rocky planet?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you think about just crosses full stop, I mean, they're so dynamic, all these squares, all these oppositions. I always think about, it's like these four areas of life are lit up, and those four areas of life are often in disharmony together as you're trying to get them all to work. The Cardinal Cross, for example, you have Aries, which is about the personal, cardinal, Capricorn, which is often about aspirations or goals. Then you've got the relational side of Libra, and then the family or the belonging or the clan side of Cancer. It's like, well, which am I doing? Am I at home with the family, or am I doing something for me, or am I working, or am I, spending time with my partner? And so I think it's so active. It's that constant balancing of, all right, which am I doing most? But then add in cardinal energy, that drive, that motivation of that, and that initiating energy of cardinal. It definitely makes sense what Melanie says. And look, as to how I see it in the Southern Hemisphere, it doesn't matter whether it's starting with Aries or it's starting with Libra. It's still an initiating energy. And my astrology teacher, she always used to say, Libra is just Aries in a Cinderella dress. It's still got that very warrior-like energy, but instead of being the warrior for self, it's the warrior for justice. It's that social justice warrior, or that person out there fighting for something or trying to be in relationships. So, I mean, here we've just got Venus, and it makes a lot of sense in spring that it's Venus in rulership. You know, we're seeing all the beautiful flowers come up. We're seeing, you know, the flows of air and the spring breezes come through too. So it can make sense either way. I get the singularity and that energy of Aries for the Northern Hemisphere, but it just makes me think, you know, astrology was, as we practice it, was birthed in the Northern Hemisphere. And that's probably why that template, that filter works so well for it. But, you know, even here, if you talk to Indigenous astrologers or First Nations astrologers in Australia, it still does have that kind of initiating energy of a cardinal sign. So, yeah.
Yeah, I
Nice.
think it's really revealing, right? Like you can't. We had Sam Reynolds on to talk about the Zodiac Mafia, and he
Oh, he's
had
hilarious.
Libra. He's so good as Libra was the not the Don, but the person who could liaise anywhere, and I loved that sense of, you know, you don't mess with Libra for that reason. Yeah, yeah, really fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
the
Venus
Equinox.
is, you think about Venus, Venus is a planet full of sulfuric acid. Like, this isn't a lovely, she looks pretty from the outside with all those lovely clouds reflecting things, but what's going on under the surface of that planet is hot and you know, and can burn you. So Venus definitely has that side to her too, doesn't she?
Well, and
Right,
it'll
right,
be
and even
interesting. Oh, sorry, Lillian. It'll be interesting moving forward. We're in such a strange time of, you know, the binary being shaken up, and you know what's masculine, what's feminine, and all of this kind of thing. And I find
Hmm.
that a lot of things in astrology, whether they're attached to feminine energy or they're not representative of achievement and the things that we've really moved towards as a culture recent, you know, in the last 100 years or whatever. And so to see how that shifts the language that we talk about these things, because I think Libra, as being ruled by Venus, gets under her strength gets underrepresented, her cardinality gets underrepresented because of the, you know, the connection to the more feminine side of things. Just like we're going to hear a different conversation about Virgo, like anything that's connected to a more feminine energy is being discussed in a different way, as less passive, less um sweet, as you know, Venus is sweet and candy and all these things. It's like, no, she's what you want, you know, and how hard are you going to attract that? And is it going to be in a nice way, or is it going to be in the way that you're going to get it, whatever that looks like? And so
Yeah.
I think you're totally right about that Libra energy. And I think it gets very underestimated for sure.
yeah.
Sorry, Lillian, I cut you off.
No, you didn't. I think I was trying to talk over each one of you in turn. But I'll say instead, let's look at that chart for the equinox. I'm especially curious to see what's coming this
Let's do
season.
it. So we'll look at autumn first. There it is. All right, can we see it?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
All right, so this is for Ottawa, Canada. So this is the Northern Hemisphere chart. And so, you know, we can see that it's there's going to be an initiatory energy to this for sure, with that new moon sitting there. What do you guys have
Yeah.
to say about this?
I like
Well,
the tri.
considering, oh, sorry, you go, Lillian.
Well, I was going to say, I like the trine from Pluto, and I think to myself, like, it's a good time to be purpose filled because when you employ purpose, I think Carolyn Casey says this, and I've noticed it as well. Pluto becomes an ally and not such a overwhelming force. So I like that strength coming into it.
Alicia, you practice, is it primarily Hellenistic, or what's your astrology?
Yeah, yeah, I'm traditional Hellenistic astrologer. Although, you know, I studied in modern, so And I do work with more than just whole signs in my work. So this works for me, a Placidus chart. But what I'm noticing on top of what Lillian said just then is that we've got so much lit up at this early degrees, and this is going to go on into next year with Uranus there at 1 degree, and also it's opposite that Neptune in Aries too. So there's something about a sign of the times that this eclipse is this is picking up on. It's right after the eclipse as well, that new
Yeah.
moon, that is that 29-degree eclipse. So yeah, I'm curious as to what you girls are thinking about this, but especially with that, I don't know, we're seeing so much in a mundane way with AI, with technology, with the way we communicate shifting so quickly and so rapidly. I'm curious about how this equinox point is going to swing things as well, just with what we're seeing now with the energy of just moving forward so fast and so dynamically, especially with that Neptune in Aries there too.
Have I stopped sharing? Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And so the reason why I asked the kind of astrology is I was pretty sure it was Hellenistic, and I wanted to talk about that Mercury sitting right between the sun and the moon, because that isn't that is it besieged? Like, what is that called when there's a planet trapped between two things?
Uh, Something's only besieged when it's trapped between malefics.
Okay.
So actually what is happening, yeah, it's more that the moon would have translated the light or something like that. But no, it's just in there, part of the equation with everything as well. But it's interesting having the sun, the moon, and that Mercury in there of like, okay, head, heart, and minds are all connected. You know, head, heart, and soul, let's say, are all connected in the sky in that moment of where are we going forward with. It would be, yeah, what I'm thinking about that lineup.
Oh, I like that. I really like that.
Hmm.
Well, and we have this interesting pattern happening as the outers move back and forth in their signs, where they're in the later, the earlier degrees. And so every time we have some kind of a something changing signs, we have these big patterns building, so looking at the Virgo ingress, we have a yod to I think it's the we still have Saturn and Neptune and Aries, and then Pluto, and so it's making this yod, and this really
Mm.
really potent balsamic moon. So we keep getting these big shapes. I think in this one we have it's the Mars that's making, well, it's actually square Pluto, and quincunx the Uranus. So we just keep getting, every time we have an ingress, these really dynamic patterns. And so for anybody who has these early degrees in their chart, it's like we're just like triggering that over and over and over again. And then as things move out of their sign for a little bit, the people with later degrees are going to have the same intensity, right? Over and over and over again. And so I feel like it just feels like we keep having to start something. Like the energy of it just kind of feels like this like really weird, not getting anywhere as fast as you feel like you should be going, but I feel like I keep starting projects even though I'm not. I'm just still trying to do the same things. Are you guys noticing the same energy?
Yeah. Yeah, especially when
Well,
Mars came through and entered Libra. That was like, oh my gosh, all the things. It was so busy, and just
yeah.
being pulled all those different ways as that cardinal cross can do for us. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that for me, pardon me, the sense of, we've talked about it quite a bit, going from water and earth to air and fire, water and earth. I was
Mm.
making a little care package for a friend, and I have all those little decorative masking tapes, and there was one with a constellation and another with astronauts. And as somebody with a lot of water, I have the moon in water, Saturn in water, the ascendant in water, Neptune, Mercury, South Node. I feel like I'm sort of using this time where Saturn goes back into Pisces to almost like create an astronaut's suit to get through this time where it's going to be hotter and thinkier and faster, and I don't want to react to it. I want to let
Mm,
it kind of pour in. And so I'm trying to think of ways to create that nourishment that'll be different while also accepting like the more lively and fun components of those elements switching. So that's something that I've been enjoying, but noticing we kind of keep getting dipped back into that really deep time when Neptune was conjunct Saturn in Pisces, and it's just kind of playing and playing in the ether. Um, so that's one thing I think about this time.
that's a beautiful analogy, Lillian. I love it.
She has a way with words, this
Yeah.
one.
Oh, well, I just love the idea. When I was in the water, I felt like I used to try to describe it to my in-laws. I felt like an octopus, like octopuses are dead clever
Mm,
and they can walk and build things and do all this stuff. But if you pull them out of the water, they look like spaghetti and they're not, it's not as imaginative and lovely. And so I've been thinking about this for a while and also trying to get the benefit of all of this energy coming forward. I spent the whole time with Mars and Virgo just sending as much love as I could to strategy. And like, I feel like we
mm.
struggle a bit with the chaos that's happening. And so I want to send as much energy forward to repair solutions, how we stay civilized, how we are with each other. And so I feel like that's being tested now for
Yeah.
sure.
And it's a really good point you bring up there because, considering that this equinox is ruled by Venus in Virgo, that is where we can ground. Because I know,
Mm.
in Hellenistic astrology, we talk about Venus in Virgo as challenged or in her detriment, but, she's also in her triplicity here. This isn't where she's completely out of the water or out of her she's under resourced. So where we can simplify or where we can build in structure into our days so that we, plan that cup of tea on the back deck looking out over the bush. So I'm being very
Yeah,
Australian in my analogies, you know,
that's lovely.
um, or where we can get into the garden or we can get into nature is just, okay, how can we anchor in that Venus in Virgo? Because she is so much about purity, so much about cutting through and just getting back to what's really core to us. And I think that's what
Hmm.
will really help us in these times. And 100%, a lot of what I do with clients, because I'm also a counselor as well as an
Hmm.
astrologer, is somatic. It's about get into your body, stay in the present
Yes.
moment. Don't be worrying too much about the past or the future or, what's AI going to do taking over the world. It's like, okay, right now it's not. Right now in this moment, you are here in you. And so that's where I think as we go forward into these times where so many of those outer planets will be in those dynamic and passionate and fire and air signs, is okay, we have to build those anchors for ourselves now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. I also feel like that Mars and Scorpio is going to feel really good to have some more fixity in Mars, maybe,
Mm.
a bit more staying power. I think I was thinking about that stop start energy. And the thing that I've
Mm.
noticed is like we keep having these like big long stretches of the moon being void of course too. And so I think that might
Mm,
add to the frustration because like trying to make progress on anything in those times is just, a bit like quicksand or, however somebody might experience it. But they're just this, and we're not going to get away from that as long as everything's in the same degrees of the zodiac. We're just going to keep having this void of course moon energy. And so it's
You
almost like
mm,
know,
we're being forced to relax or, to not take everything so seriously and to chill out and relax and be patient because
I love
it's
that.
not gonna go anywhere if you try to force it, there's nothing for it to connect to. So, it's yeah. What are you gonna
I
say,
heard a
Lillian?
funny story from Carolyn Casey. She shared that Yoko Ono always had her contract signed on a void of course moon. And the reason why is because she didn't know if she could trust anyone. And so she wanted to be able to back out of it if she needed to. So she never signed anything first time during a direct or newly aspected moon. I thought that was hilarious.
That's
It's
interesting.
interesting,
I
isn't it?
wouldn't have thought to use a
It's a
void of
very Mars
course
in
that way.
Scorpio strategy to
Yeah,
do,
hey,
actually.
that's
Isn't
really
that good? I mean,
interesting.
yeah.
Well, I'm just curious about this eclipse as well, and maybe you've talked about this on another episode. You know, this is coming. This will still be in that eclipse hangover under all this
Yeah.
as well, and this is the only one of the Pisces Virgo eclipses that is pure. That is
Yeah.
those two, because everything else is, you know,
Out of sign, right?
Pisces eclipse with an Aries, with a
Yeah.
Libra, or the other way around, moving more into the Leo Aquarius that we'll be having. I think our next eclipse next year will be like that eclipse season next
Yeah.
year. So it's interesting, isn't it, about how this kind of almost handover from the mutability into the cardinality is happening under this kind of, I don't know,
Messy.
I hate the word karmic, but it is that kind of
Ooh,
sliding doors
fun.
I like
feeling
it.
of this, of like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we're stepping into the unknown very much here. So it's like you're throwing the chess pieces up and you really don't know
Mm-hmm.
where everything's going to land, kind of energy to this too.
Mhm. Well, and it just continues on that theme that nothing feels like a straight line. Everything is
Mm,
gets these halts and it's messy and you're not quite sure. It's almost, if you want to believe in a creator, that this is by design and we're being forced to have faith and we're being forced to watch and see and trust. Not that anybody's
Mm.
doing a great job of that, but they know that's sort of what it feels like. There's just all this, when the outer planets are that loud, it's like there's a bigger plan. And so just, do your day to day. And I'm like you, I'm like preaching grounding as much as I can to people, stay centered,
mm,
stay in your body, breathe, breathe.
Mm-hmm.
Before you speak, especially with Uranus and Gemini, it's like take a breath before it comes out. And this is the Virgo ingress has its square, and as is the eclipse is exactly square that Uranus and Gemini, and so there's lots of that energy that is poking its head up in these more significant charts. It's not just a short aspect. So we're seeing it publicly, lots of people sticking their foot in their mouth over and over again, which is,
Oh,
entertaining, but
yeah.
you just don't want it to happen to you.
Well, yeah, because the karmic component seems to be this is a lot of straws breaking camels' backs. Like I know for me,
mm,
I have a Sagittarius sun, and thank God for a Scorpio Mercury. But like I've pulled myself out of almost all social events because on a good day, I'm going to compliment someone the wrong way. With these aspects in the sky,
mm,
I'm not getting near anyone. And so, but I wanted to speak to the AI and the somatics because I find that those two are really fascinating characters, right? And
mm,
one of the things that I did last month was I went back to my thesauruses and dictionaries and then found all of my research journals, how to research. And I sort of threw myself back into the pre-computer, pre-internet era, really, and thought to myself, if we don't have encyclopedias or verifiable ways to get information, can I go back and look at older methods of research to sort of give myself that a breath, if you will? And then the other part about somatics, I find myself really overwhelmed by the speeding up energy. And so I find very often if I shift from thinking to doing, it fixes things. And there's a nearby fish pond that I can go feed fishes at. So it could be as simple as getting up with some fish food, tossing it in, and looking at the fish. But it is that shift from, oh gosh, I'm trying to figure out how to frame this. I'm going to try a little thing. So Amanda Owen, great astrologer, talks a lot about receiving, and she talks about how we think anything in the reclining position that's still is resting. But she supposes if we are strategizing, wallowing, going through our day, we are not resting at all. And so she has really subtle ways of understanding how we nourish ourselves and how we nourish others. And so for me, I am looking to find out, can I even receive And if not, what's the very simplest thing I can do to bring myself back to receiving? So, and I don't know how they fit together, but that research and then hands on, touch grass kind of vibe feel like they're going to be very important coming in the coming days, coming years.
Yeah. And look, I don't know if you've heard about Dr. Sandra Dalton Smith, who has done beautiful work. There's a great TED talk in which she talks about the 7 different types of rest, and how rest, as we know it, Netflix and chill isn't really rest, that's just
No.
passivity. But she talks about physical rest, mental rest, sensory rest, creative rest, emotional, social, spiritual. Which one have I forgotten? No, I think I've got all 7. So it's definitely worthwhile watching that YouTube, and it's absolutely something to what you're saying, and I think it's doing with being. It's doing in the
Yeah.
present moment, where we can really be present with something. I just had that beautiful image of you out feeding the fish and really being in that image. And I think it's something else with AI too, working in the therapy field. People are starting to turn to AI for therapy, and it's having
Yeah.
some really dire consequences because AI is a self-reflective feedback loop. It will give you what you want to hear, and we're hearing about people going down some pretty serious rabbit holes where they're being told that they are the Messiah or that they are amazing. I notice it myself when I have chats with AI, and also in therapy or even in astrology, we as the person, we are a co-regulator, a nervous system
Yes.
co-regulator. This is
Yes.
what we're wired to do from an evolutionary perspective. Our brains, our nervous system is wired to pick fruit with friends in the forest. And so we're not meant to be at these sped up pace. And I think this is where we have to be careful. Like, I'm not totally against AI. I think AI is going to be able to do amazing things, but we need to really be careful how we work with it. And so, what you're talking about, Lillian, about just that really, now that we've got Saturn back in Pisces and Neptune's going to move back in there in November as well, it's like, okay, how can we just create these, I love your spacesuit analogy, all these bubbles around us that keep us in our soul, in our creativity, in that very right brain space, whereas I think the air signs are more that left brain. So, yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
So what are your I'd love to hear your thoughts, Alicia, on Neptune and Aries. I still like I just like Neptune, I feel like it's the feeling of it is so out of reach, and I've heard so many ideas, but I'm just like, I want more. Tell me more about Neptune and Aries. What are your thoughts?
Well, I guess I'm looking at Aries as where things are singular. The growth of the mono, the growth of the singular. So we're seeing a lot of autocracies really starting to grow up. This single leader getting more and more power, whether that's at a government level, whether that's at a technology level. The Peter Thiels, Mark Zuckerbergs, the Jeff Bezos, and how we have to, and even well, it's my way or the highway kind of feeling of Aries as well, and the glamorization of that. I'm definitely seeing it here in Australia in, the alt-right, kind of taking over and going, yep, it's okay to come back into that place where we're aggressive or assertive or pushing our agenda. So that ability to be diplomatic feels like it's gone out the window. And look, just the glamorization of war or the glamorization
Yeah.
of, I do feel like we're going to see this more, unfortunately. I don't think it's going to go away. How that looks and how that plays into Pluto and Uranus in the air signs makes me wonder what's going on in a tech or an information or a communication based way, new breakthroughs or things there that are also being informed by what's going on with Neptune and then Saturn. But, interestingly, I'm trying to remember if it was Ptolemy. I was just talking about this with someone the other day who put together these signs with places on the planet.
Mm.
I'm pretty sure it's Ptolemy. So Aries rules Britain, France, Germany, Poland. Then it comes down into Jordan, Syria, that whole area around Israel and Palestine. And so it's really interesting how all of those countries are back up in the fore in the media right now. You know, what is going on in those places. If we think about when Uranus moved into Aries, that definitely happened in that area
Yeah.
when we had the Arab Spring.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and some big shifts in France and Germany, especially in that period of time. But then, yeah, this is coming up too. So I'm curious how it will play out on a worldwide stage in those areas. Because I've got friends in France who were saying that, was it back in March or April, that they were sent packages saying how to prepare for war by their government, how to prepare for 3 days if power runs out or things run out. So this is a potential reality for what
Right.
we may be going into with Neptune in Aries. But look, it's also an opportunity for us all to kind of take the French example and throw a revolution in there as
Yeah.
well for us, to fight back for ourselves, the grassroots movement to push, as well as we're seeing more and more people protesting in the streets in different things. I know in the US,
Mm-hmm.
the protests that are happening because of ICE, and the protests that are happening all over the world because of the Middle East. So the power of the individual together as a collective, that kind of Neptune in Aries as well. So that's some of the nebulous thoughts I'm having about that Aries energy.
One thing that I find fascinating that keeps coming up it in media, ironically enough, is we're seeing the power of media. When you're talking about protests happening all over, and the fact that we're not seeing the half of it because the larger
Right.
corporations aren't showing it. You basically have to be on social media and paying attention, or you don't even know what's happening in the world. And I know I'm beating this like a dead horse, but in Shiny Happy People, which is about the Duggar family, and they have these political affiliations because the leader of their religion has groomed these kids to go and go into politics. But there's a section where they talk about how I don't remember which channel that show was on, but like how, first of all, the show made the channel, but the channel's whole idea was to exploit the Christianity side of things because there's such a huge audience for that, especially in the States, and how it was part of their agenda to take it in this sort of right wing sort of way. And I feel like we're going to see a lot more of how much power that kind of media has had, something that we don't, the average person every day is not thinking about what that's putting into their brain, and what, how that's changing the way they perceive the world and how it's feeding these ideologies. And so that to me will be an interesting, because I think we're also seeing it. I can't remember where it all started, but there's this huge discussion happening right now with comedians and how much power they actually have, and how they have in
Mm.
downplaying the hate and downplaying the right wingness and downplaying all of these things, they've contributed in a huge way to normalizing a lot of this bad behavior. Mark Maron went off on Howie Mandel, which was a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah.
And just like not letting him get away with saying it's not my responsibility. So that's another interesting place where we're going to see celebrities called out for the bad behavior, for maybe setting a shitty example. I don't know, but I'm
Mm.
curious
It's
about the
so
other
hard.
side of Neptune and Aries, where Neptune melts things and Aries being the ego and the individual. So what's the other side of that look like? That this power and
Well,
this
think
like
of Joe
singular is
Rogan.
fake, right? Go ahead.
Oh, interesting. Well, Joe Rogan is an example where he has started to kind of come out against Trump. And I think, I mean, as you both are talking, or as we're getting into this discussion, I keep thinking about, it's unfortunate that from my perspective, that things are being destroyed in a way that doesn't capture the value that they gave. In particular, I'm speaking about the US. And ICE is being offered things that they call socialism and communism. Like, you can get your student loan written off if you join ICE. You can get a $50,000
Oh, wow.
signing bonus. So you say you're going to work with them, and so they give you $50,000. You're obligated to work for them for a few years. There's something in this vibe of the necessary breakdowns that lead to great change, but also just how revealing it is, right? Like disillusionment, I think. I had the illusion that I didn't know any, I'm going to sound extreme, but I don't really feel this way, collaborators. You know what I mean? I've been showing these videos in the States of like, here's what happened after World War II. It was awful and no one got to go back to normal. We could stop this now or we could keep going. And it's because I think what people want is for things to be functional, normal, work. And so to see CBS give up Stephen Colbert, right, and fire him, to shift things, and Tim, I can't remember his name because the president called him Tim Apple once, so that's all I can think about. But bringing like literally a block of gold in the form of a bribery, replacing a technologically secure plane that travels the world with a plane from Qatar that doesn't make any sense. So there's something in it, and I'm not quite getting it, but it's we wouldn't have seen what we wouldn't know now what we know now about who we know now without these events coming to play. And I think that they are, I think it's a test of our civility and what we want to work going forward. And I also love the shift into a male sign from Pluto and Capricorn, which I felt was the very strong sense of the female Earth going, hey, I'm showing up for you, or you can give up the whole thing. One way or another, we're going to handle this. And so with that, I feel as a woman very clear about saying none of what we're talking, war is not for women. War is for rapists and pedophiles. Let's not go to war. I'm not trying to be naive. I'm trying to tell you, you can't do that. And so trying to kind of call on that ancestral space of this is what it looks like is not what it's going to end up being. So in that space, I take that dynamic tension of the breaking and the need to repair as an optimistic sign that we're going to see what it is that we want to get rid of. We're going to see what it is. And then to your point, I heard somebody down here, I'm in the South in the United States, in North Carolina, talking about a Christian contracting agency. And in the US that I grew up in, it was secular and it was growing and understanding about different races and stuff like that. But the ecumenical work was primarily in the church or in proselytizing. It wasn't like I have my own construction agency and that's Christian. I have my own this and that's Christian. So like you're saying, Tracy, I don't know how long this has been going on. And even that has been a fun thing to look at with the callbacks to 1965 and 66 and the oppositions that were happening there, going even further back in the United States to Andrew Jackson and further on. I mean, there's something about like that creaking time of a really shifting world. It's serious, it's heavy. How do we get into position to birth the next version?
And there's a beautiful book that I've been reading called Hospicing Modernity, which is very much about because at the end of the day, these current systems aren't working anymore, and we know it, whether
Right.
it's financial, whether it's
Right.
educational, even supposed democracy that we have now, and especially the media. Thanks to our beautiful, jokingly,
I know.
Rupert Murdoch, who, as a Jupiter in Cancer, interestingly, he's used that Jupiter in Cancer to spread influence everywhere. And I'm wondering if
Yeah.
now that we're coming up to his return, if the chickens are going to come home to roost with him. But that sense of I'm seeing here in Australia, I don't know what it's like, and actually I know what's happening in the US because I follow accounts, but individuals are now using social media for change. And we had a lot
Mm-hmm.
of people in their 20s and 30s who used social media before our most recent election back in May to educate people around our voting system here and what preferential voting really meant. And so people
Nice.
were going to the polls a lot more empowered. They knew their rights, they knew how much their vote actually mattered. Whereas before, because of the way political parties are legally allowed to lie and tell their citizens, false things about what preferential voting really means, people were able to go, actually, I'm not going to listen to you anymore. And I think this is where media's, we've got, there's someone called Punters Politics, another Hannah Ferguson, who runs Cheek Media, who's going to become a senator next year. She's amazing. But even in the US, I'm listening to Jessica Yellen, who I have been since COVID. And she's been a fantastic source, especially during all the supposed ICE riots in LA, because she was really on the ground there. So it was, and even, what we're seeing coming out of Gaza, in the Middle East, these individual journalists who are really able to show us what's truly happening, that we don't have to listen to these old creaky. So that's where I'm
I
seeing that
love that.
Pluto,
Yeah.
Uranus coming through. It's like, okay, this is what the collective can do and how we can be individually empowered, but towards a better collective, not towards what we need ourselves. And that's what I'm really hoping, how all of this happening together won't be just Neptune in Aries this time going me, me, me. It'll be Neptune in Aries balanced on either side by
Mm.
Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini going, okay, great, let's do the me, but let's communicate and let's make it better for the collective. Let's make it better for the whole of humanity, and do it in that way. So, I think we saw it just last month, especially as that Mars-Saturn opposition, right when we had the full moon in Aquarius, highlighted it. But I do think that this is all leading us towards, and the equinox will do that, what we're going to see with that basket in early to mid-July next year, when we've got everything lining up with Jupiter and Leo and everything in those early degrees.
Yeah.
What I think it'll be quite a historic point in time that will happen there. So,
Fascinating.
are
Yeah.
you feeling the same? What are you both thinking?
Yeah, well, it you can't. I personally don't feel like you can, if you are empathic or tapped into the energy at all. You can't ignore that this is leading to something. It does
Mm,
not. Nothing feels inconsequential anymore, or mundane or trivial, which is and that's that. I mean, I tend to not be those things anyways, and I tend to really pay attention, think things might be bigger than they will be, but I really feel like this is moving towards a giant shift. And also, when you were talking about war and those outer planets, um, I also feel like, in terms of how we do war, we really have no idea what this looks like, and what they can, and what they can actually do. And that's the part about the Neptune that really scares me, is the covertness and the hidden,
yeah.
and the
Or
not
why we're
knowing.
even at war, because
Yeah.
I
Right.
have my theories about resources and the fact that we're running out of, we've passed peak oil, and
Right.
a lot of our tech is made from very specific rare minerals. So why are we really at war? What's really happening? And I think that's where a lot is under the surface of that Neptune in Aries. It's like, come and fight with us, but you don't really know why you're doing it. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really good point, Tracy. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me about the Neptune and Aries is that we have there was such a what's the word that I want? Like, we got a vision of this as people became more delusional about the thing that they're so passionate about right now, their individual freedom, I think is what it sits underneath. But I think in my experience, the people that I've talked to who feel really strongly about it can't actually put it into words. It always just comes down to some anger that doesn't land anywhere real, but we have this delusion has been building and building and building, and now we have full blown people who like it's not nothing's reality anymore, how they're seeing things, and
Mm.
they're being given all these resources of false information to prove themselves right. And that's the other piece of the Neptune thing that I feel like is going to get a lot worse before it gets
Yeah.
better. Yeah.
And you made that point earlier, what's some of the more positive side of this? And I think this is this can be the peaceful warrior. That idea of we're fighting towards, it's almost like The Last Samurai, or even that book, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's like that the point isn't that we're fighting for what we want, but it's pushing towards something that is going to be of a higher purpose or a higher need. And in a way, kind of doing that different thing can be dropping out or doing things differently, or fighting for what is ethical, if that makes sense.
Ooh, I love that.
Spiritually ethical. Yeah.
Carolyn Casey talks about clean magic, and she'll talk about, she has a
Mm.
trickster training that I quite enjoy. And so she'll talk about how the clean magic is, ice runs out of money and they just can't function. And then people start to wake up to what it is that they're doing. And then they make different decisions. So it's not pinning anyone down to you are like this because you've exhibited this. And I find that really valuable.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that idea of a spiritual warrior, what that actually took me to is I also think this is leading up to um, unmasking, I guess, the difference between religion and spirituality. And I feel like that story,
Interesting.
where will be quite different at the end of Neptune and Aries than it is now. And you're seeing
Mm.
what
Wow.
drives me crazy about humans in general is that like there's this predilection to go after the good side because it's easier, and good is not the word that I want, but it's like watching a young woman yesterday, somebody posted it on the internet, losing her mind. Feminists are the worst humans on the planet because now she has to work and it sucks, and she wants to go back to the 50s where she can just get married and have babies and get taken care of, because everything that feminism did ruined her life and made it hard. And so these delusions around the nostalgia, like I feel like Jupiter and Cancer is really, we're doing this whole nostalgia thing in the biggest way possible. It's so Jupiterian. But this idea that there's this falseness around that history. Did that even make sense? I don't feel like I went in the
100%,
line I was
because it wasn't no, it
It
makes
was
a lot
not
of
like
sense,
that.
but unfortunately, it wasn't the feminism that did it. It's
Right.
capitalism that's meant women suddenly got our rights, and then they went, "Oh, no. Okay, let's put them in the workforce and put more financial pressure on them, and then they have to work," rather than having the choice about whether or not they want to.
Yeah, I remembered where the rest of that. I'm also seeing on the internet this battle between people saying, because of course we're in the astrology, woo woo phase of, when you're on the internet, that's a lot of the people that I follow. And so there's one half who are telling everybody to stop making it all about doom and gloom. Then you have the other half who are like, don't whitewash it. How come everybody's trying to be so positive about it? Like, you can't, like, there's this back and forth about, and it's very good and evil. It's people, like two groups coming up against each other. And it doesn't really matter what space you're in. It's this interesting Aries energy that people feel like they need to take a stand on one side and then yell at the other.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such a good point, Tracy, this idea of what does it mean to belong and be a part unified, and what does it mean to be sovereign? And I remember talking to a beautiful
Yeah.
First Nations man here locally about that, of what it means from an Indigenous sense. And he said, look, a fish in a river knows that it's on its own. It has its own feeling and sensings of the water. It can see things, but it's also very aware that it's in water, and it will move in synchronicity with, the fish around it, and it will
Yeah.
respond to the environment in that way. And he said, so, you know, being sovereign means something very different, and it's that
Mm,
kind of that sense of animism or deep ecology that happens there, of like, we are never ever separate from the system. And I think
right.
this is what I'm hoping, maybe, that Neptune in Aries can remind us in a more, higher aspect of looking at it is, yes, we are unique and individual here, but that comes with a sense of, we have to pay back for our existence. There's a gift in what we've been given as an individual, and therefore that needs to be given back for. And so what
Yeah.
does that look like
Yeah.
as
It's
part of the
beautifully
collective?
said.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I
Mm.
love that.
Yeah.
And I said right in the very beginning of Pluto, the discussion about what Pluto and Aquarius was going to look like. And I just, and I'll continue to say it, I just hope that people realize the power of working together. Like
Mm.
because to me that's the gift of Pluto and Aquarius, and that, and we see it. We see when people come together and protest to stop ice, and we see people come, like, we're seeing it over and over and over again. That, I don't remember. Oh, here we boycotted a grocery store. I don't remember what they did, but we were mad, and it was this huge chain. It's like the Canadian Walmart essentially. And everybody just said, on this day, don't go shopping there, or this week, don't. And they lost millions. People actually did it. And it's just like, and
Wow.
and they ended up having to go back on the thing that they were going to do. I don't remember what it was. Oh, I know. um
Wow.
Record prices, but they ended up getting like huge profits. That was the thing. And people are just like, you know what, fuck
Mm.
off. We're just gonna, we'll show you what your profits look like if we decide not to shop at your store, is essentially what happened. And yeah, and it worked. And I feel like if everybody could just figure out how to work together, and figure out what the actual common goals are, not outside of yourself. I think that we could do great things instead of fighting with each other.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Love it.
That's my little Pisces rising.
I know. I was going to say, where's the Aries? Where's the Sag? The stuff we've learned this year. We've talked with Andrea Gers from Moira Press, and
Mm-hmm.
she's been doing this gender intersection of gender and race, and all of these discussions, and they're all filled with this yummy, yummy Mars energy, Martian energy, just
Mm.
going all the way, full of vim and vigor. And there's a piece of that as a person who has a Mars and Virgo and therefore is not really interested in like a big war happening or anything like that, I'm much more curious about how we express all of this and how we take care of that Mars as well. And I find that the somatic work helps with that too, that grounding is
Yeah.
necessary. But I think in part it is finding, I mean, in my entire adult life, I've been searching for the good no. Do you know what I mean? Like you're negotiating
Mm.
and you say no, and then all of a sudden there's this swirly business. And even if you bat it off, it's sort of like, why isn't there more honor among us? Why can't we kind of summon more of a, we're going to do what we say, and here's how that looks, and it's because we've nourished each other. I also think very much, I love the idea of an endless Scooby Doo unmasking for the Neptune and Aries portion of our chart. But I also love that idea of each one of us making a difference, like the person throwing starfish back into the sea, and they can't throw billions of them, but they can throw the portion that's theirs. And I think that those two things, that expression of our will where we meet each other, is something that's valid for this time and something that we get to explore even if we're gentle people who aren't interested in consequences from aggressive decisions.
Mm. Yeah, it's a good point.
So
And
what
what
kind?
you were saying as well.
No, go ahead, Alicia.
Sorry. No, go Lily. No, go Tracy, because
You
I
go.
think you're going to follow on from what
No,
Lillian
no,
was
I was
saying.
moving on. So you go ahead. You comment on
Okay.
what Lillian.
Well, it just made me think that Neptune is now, for the first time in, I don't have my ephemeris next to me, but basically since Neptune was in Scorpio, it has been ruled by Jupiter and Saturn, very slow moving planets. Whereas now, Neptune is back looking to a faster, more personal planet in term, and so it'll be really interesting to see as Mars moves signs a lot more quickly, and also what its retrograde periods are like as well, as to what this manifestation of Neptune in Aries will look like. Aries is a dynamic sign. It
Yeah.
shifts and changes. It's like, okay, well, it will be more fast paced when Mars is in its dignity, when Mars is energized and bold and doing Mars well. And then, like Mars right now in Libra, it's not going to feel great. It's not going to be good.
Right.
Mars isn't resourced, or Mars behaving badly. So it'll be really interesting to see the cultural zeitgeist of how Neptune in Aries is acting, because it's under a faster moving planet too. So I think we will see things kind of shifting and changing more, in terms of what people are asking for, and just these monopolies that are happening too, being unmasked or uncovered. So
That's a
yeah.
really good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, that's a really good point. Definitely that you feel those rulerships. I noticed that this Jupiter in Cancer without any Earth, feeling those transitions of the moon so much more than I would normally. And
Yeah.
I'm just it's
Yes.
pretty fatiguing, to be honest. And with Venus there too, now it's like, oh, okay, too many. I was this morning, it was like as soon as the moon shifted, I was like, it's too much. It's too much stuff happening right now. Too many feelings. I'm gonna call Lillian because she likes feelings.
I love feelings. I love all of the feelings.
I didn't want them. No, I didn't. So we're almost at the end of our hour. Alicia, do you have any tips? Is there anything that you're helpful other than grounding that you're giving people to navigate this time more sanely with a little bit more peace?
Well, I'm thinking, something along the lines of what Lillian was saying. But if you're feeling that need to go out and be the warrior for something, find something that's close to your heart. Find something that's really important to you. We don't all have to be on the front lines of the marches, for example, the protests, but this could look as simple as donating to a cause that's really important to you, or putting yourself out there to, with Jupiter in Cancer, for example, supporting people who have housing issues, either working in a soup kitchen or, donating clothes to your local homeless shelter. So there's those kind of things that are possible as well. And look, I will say, keep an eye on AI. Don't stick your head in the sand around it. Stay well informed. And I think with all of this, find news sources that are not mainstream media or traditionally mainstream media that you trust, and critical thinking. I can't say enough about critical thinking on that. But yeah, I will be doing more of a series on AI and therapy specifically
Very
in the next
cool.
month or so. So yeah.
Oh,
You
excellent.
know, I worked for Microsoft for a long time. I know we're closing down, but I just wanted to share
Mm,
this. So it's autocomplete on such a grand scale, right? AI is what you
yeah.
put in, and it's exactly, and I love myself. I'm sure I'd get some pretty wacky suggestions if I just let that roll and roll. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing because it doesn't appeal to me at all. I'm not against it like you're talking, but I'm like, oh, I hate autocomplete. I have to fix everything I do because of autocomplete. I don't want anything to
Yeah.
do with AI.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're outsourcing our human brains to it. Our brains are an efficiency machine. If they know that something else will hold that information for it, it
Yes.
will actually not bother storing it. And that's
Yeah.
what, people are talking about, in a way we're kind of dumbing ourselves down with our reliance on AI. So it's like work out the best ways to use AI, so it can be helping you in your life, but not taking over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's very good.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with us. The
Yeah.
world is a
Thank
wild and
you.
wacky place. No matter where we live, we're
Thank you for
all
having
seeing,
me.
yeah, thank you. And you're in the future. So enjoy tomorrow for us.
I know. I've got my Tuesday Mars red on.
Looks
So,
good.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you. And we're going to sign off. We'll see you guys next
Thanks for
time.
having me.